there's nothing more depressing than getting everything you've ever wanted.
Dude, you're in all the Hatsala threads. Very high end.
I think I think it's all sort of rigged and a conspiracy.
It's not just crap. It is a heaming pile of steamy, miles-long dog crap. Welcome back to...
Buckle up, baby.
Episode 68, coming to you live from Riverside Remote. Michael's boiling hot, being a real trooper with his AC off. Mine is on and really quiet. It's nice.
Yeah, well, that's the dream. That's the dream.
What's the latest, Mikey? How's the summer going?
Well, you tell me. You just had a show on Netflix drop.
Today happens to be a cool day for the band, for Distant Cousins, because we had a show launched today that we had worked on for like over a year, doing all of the music, theme songs and songs in the show, and underscore. So every ounce of music you hear in the show was created from scratch by Distant Cousins. A lot of it in this room and dosed in my bandmate studios. So
what's an underscore?
What's the underscore of a show?
Yeah.
Not the song, not the theme song, the score.
Like,
you know what the word score means, right?
Like there's transitioning scenes.
Like every time there's drama, there's music playing in the background of you know, Back to the Future. No. Oh my God. How about Indiana Jones?
What
Star
about
Wars?
Like when they drop something?
Yeah, that too.
And it goes bloop, bloop, like just a little. Well,
that's not great scoring, Michael. When Darth Vader shows up on a scene and you hear dun dun dun, dun ba-dum, boom, that's a theme that plays. That's the score that's playing. It's like you're not. It's in the background.
So you guys wrote it for this show, Dewdrop Diaries.
Dewdrop Diaries on Netflix. Yeah.
Cool. So every single sound that comes out when they
that's
get
not
surprised.
It's not a sound effect. Sound design is a little different. Sound design is like the effects, like a water spilling, or hitting car noises. There's sound design in the soundscape of any piece of film. You have your dialogue, you have your Foley, you have your sound design, and you have your score, which is the music.
Okay.
You know, like music, like notes, they're like organized together to form some kind of emotion. It's
like words, but sound.
Right.
Yeah.
Remember how you tried to explain to me what reading was?
I did. I understand what you're doing.
So yes, the score, the underscore, score is kind of short for underscore, like the score of the
film.
I
didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, when you talk about a score, so he did a score. The Hans Zimmer did this beautiful score for.
I know what a score is.
Yeah. Why did you ask what underscore is?
Because I've never heard anyone call it underscore before.
I see.
I thought underscore was like another type of thing
on the keyboard, like underscore. Yeah, underscore Got score. It. Synonymous.
Got it. It's just like a pretentious way to say score.
It's like when people called COVID, but when it was Corona and everyone's like, COVID.
Right.
And then it became normal to say COVID.
Yes. How does it feel? You put a lot of work into it. You were very busy for a very long time. Yeah,
it was, you had to be in a flow state when you do one of these jobs where you're just like.
So.
It's like you're like treading water for a year.
So it's a children's animated show. I'm on it right now. Mm-hmm. Sorry, hold on. And there are 28 episodes dropped today. Right.
Yeah, we actually did 52 episodes.
You made all 28 episodes? You just underscored it all 28 episodes?
Yes, they have released season 1, 28 episodes. They're each 11 minutes long.
Right, it says 13 minutes here.
Per episode. Some are like anywhere between 11 and 13 minutes per episode. They double each episode together, like one into the next, and that's considered a thing.
Like if you give a mouse a cookie?
Yeah. It's actually a very sweet show about like gratitude and being positive, and the show's premise is about these 3 magical fairies that help kids secretly and like behind the scenes. Like, you can't see them. No adults know they exist. But, you know, when, like, you stumble upon a shoe or something, and you're like, hey, I thought I lost my shoe. So the premise was, like, the show creator wrote this letter to his daughters about, and that was the show was like a letter to his daughters. That was the premise of it, and this idea like there's this magical force like that's helping you, and that's what these three fairies do.
Was this like a prolific creator? Was this just like a dad who had an idea for a show? Do you know anything about it?
Well, according to his story, it was like he had this idea, and I think it was one of his, like what was cool is it was a lot of people's first time sort of really putting their creative ideas together. And one of his early experiences show running, and it took it from an idea. It does speak to the process of the hustle that it takes to like see something through it, that it is possible for a little idea in your brain to go all the way to now being on Netflix, and it was just an idea. So it gives credibility to the hope of creatives out there. To me, when I see it, like, wow, look what we've done, look what he's done. It all came together with so many different parts, like. It
sounds so improbable. That's part of what the strike is about now. Like things like that these days are very improbable. Speaking of hyperreactionaries, did you see Ben Shapiro's review of Barbie?
I couldn't really watch the whole thing. I saw a little clip of it. It was like a heaping pile of doo-doo caca pee-pee. I saw a little bit of it, yeah.
What did he say? Because I saw he was going to put it out, but I didn't.
I just saw like, this is not just crap. It's not just crap. It is a heaping pile of steamy, miles-long dog crap. It's not even forget the messaging. It's just a bad movie. It's just bad. It's just really, really bad. I didn't really watch in depth about it. And I didn't see Barbie yet either. I thought it might have been a funny take, but now it's getting all political.
Oh, no. Barbie is what he reviewed, not Oppenheimer.
No, Barbie.
Barbie.
Ben reviewed my Jordan Peterson video, and now Candace and Ben are the best human beings on earth. So
what's the tick been for you? Any uptick?
I've always been a defender of Ben. First of all, even when we had guests on who went after him, I've been a defender of Ben. But I don't know. It's interesting. You don't know what happens. Like these things sort of like are blips in the content sphere, and then all of a sudden, I mean, he's got a massive audience, and Daily Wire shared this video and stuff. It's sort of yet to see. It's sort of like the ripple effect. It always feels like it's like tectonic plates shift in some way when you get a lot of recognition from something, and it's like a. So when like I remember when like Candace, I'm not sure if this was because of her, but when she reviewed the Prince Harry video, like I started all of a sudden, not right away. It wasn't like the next day or week, but like all of the sudden, a swath of like new audience came in. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
It's always a cool moment. I get tagged in something. I'm like, well, look at that. It
was cool.
It reinforces to me just the power. There's optimistic content side of yourself and pessimistic, like getting down on it, burnout side.
Yeah.
So depending on the day or the week, you get a boost in one direction or the other. Sometimes you're like, oh, God, I can't. And sometimes you're like, you know what? This stuff is really, really powerful. And like, it's just amazing how far it can go in terms of what profile and what reach it could have. And then you're just like, and then what?
I saw this guy. Yeah, I mean, as you're talking, I'm just like, you have to get, I'm not saying you have to be done with it, you have to get yourself off social media. You have to like springboard off of it. Like anything that just happens within social media seems to be a little bit of a black hole.
A little bit.
Like video gets shared, you get more followers, and so more people share the video, and you get even more followers, and it's just this virtuous cycle that leads nowhere. I saw this guy Colin, who I really want to have on the podcast. He's the guy on TikTok that makes the most amazing faces on earth. Mm-hmm. You know who I'm talking about?
I definitely do.
He just he does this thing where he does a bird song, and he'll just react. He'll just move his face.
He's like
somebody
stop me.
Yeah. Best face on the internet.
Yes.
I saw him put up today. He's like, guys, I have really big news. I got this call. This person saw my TikTok. Their wife is the CEO of a media company, and they're going to develop a TV show with me. Mm-hmm. And I'm going out to Vegas, and we're going to make a TV show together.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, ay nebach. Like,
why?
Because that's not how TV shows get made. Like, guy
you think
Vegas.
It's
I don't know if it's a scam, but I don't think he's gonna have a TV show with like a guy whose wife is a CEO and lives in Vegas.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
I guess we shall see. It does.
I guess we'll see.
There are stories like that where certainly people get. There was somebody who got a Netflix special show because of her like social media stuff.
Yeah, I'm not saying he doesn't deserve a show and won't get a show, but I don't think this thing is what he thinks it is.
Not because it doesn't happen, just because
Not
you
because it doesn't
suspect.
happen.
Oh,
Yeah,
because
just the way he was talking about it. I'm like,
just so
bro,
I'm
don't go
clear
to
with
Vegas.
just so I'm clear with the point you're making, you're saying
Yeah.
it can happen, but in this case, you felt like, oh, this was a
Yeah, no, yeah. Well, the point I'm making is like I was saying that social media is just kind of a black hole, and sometimes the things that even come through it of like, oh, I saw you on social media, come out to Vegas and let's talk. Like
Mhm.
even those things are sometimes like not even the direction you want to go in. Like you
Fair
gotta
enough.
also be
But
careful.
pre all this, it was, hey, I saw a stand up set of yours, or I saw you on this thing, and I saw you in this commercial, and somebody
Yeah,
tries to ski, like, get you. I don't know this situation you're talking about, but
yeah,
it always existed that there were non
yeah.
opportunities.
I really want to get him on the show and ask him about it though.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'll reach out.
Yeah,
That's a good
yeah,
one. I've seen his faces; they're crack, but he's the best face.
yeah,
I can't do it. He's like,
yeah. It's just incredible.
somebody stop me.
Yeah.
He's very funny. But I will say that what's been circling around in my head constantly, that just gnawing at me, is the the live performance part of everything that I've tried been like toiling over and what that's going to be. You know, because we used to talk about like having come from playing in a band that like I've always had the order of operations, product, and then the grind has been trying to find the audience. It's
Mhm.
always been the case where it's like traditionally product. Even in our case, like we have these episodes we've been doing and these guests and rapport that we've developed and all this kind of stuff. Product, all this stuff. How do we find our audience? With with the band, like we've songs and records and a live set that we feel is really strong and ready to play for lots of people. How do we find those people? What I found with social media is like I've built an audience. I'm not sure exactly where they are or what it means in intangible, like flesh and blood human beings. But the only thing stopping me is sort of like a strange sort of fear or hesitancy that I want it to be ready and good, and I sort of it's a chicken and egg thing. So for me, I've never had a situation where I've had the audience first and have to develop the product to have something to do live,
Yeah.
which is putting me back into the cycle of like doing more stand up, figuring out my set, my act, my rhythm on stage, all of that, and getting and I'm doing some shows coming up. So that's good. But how to synthesize that into something that I feel is representative, which just takes time. And now I've reached that. For a while, I was like to you, like, yeah, I'm going to put stuff together and then I'll take it out and start performing it. And I think it's more like I'm going to book something that will, like a room
Push you to do it.
that I'm headlining and have to show up to do it.
That's what you respond. You respond to people. That's your motivating factor.
I respond to like what's in front of me. So if something's in front of me, I will do whatever it takes to like try to match it. You know.
Wait, I just want to ask you one other question though about the Dude. How does it feel to have a TV show come out with your music on it? That we'll never know how many people watch it because Netflix won't release the numbers. But how does it feel?
It does feel good. It feels good, especially after you take a minute from it. While you're in it, you're kind of like it's kind of hard to say how it feels because you're in it. It's like your wedding day. Like, how does it feel? It's like, I don't know. I haven't really been married yet. I don't know what this is like. You couldn't like look back and sort of remember like big moments like that.
Mhm.
But also when something doesn't just fall into your lap and takes a really long time, you sort of, it loses its, in a healthy way, it loses its sort of like perspective from the outside looking in. Because when you arrive at a certain point, you're like, okay, well, I know where I've been to get to this point. Even though from an outsider's perspective, it's like, oh my God, you're on this show. That's so crazy. That's just like, it's like you think it's like this magical lottery win, but it's not like that. So once you've been through it and you've seen, and at least in this instance, having gone through the various paths of, the different things to get there and all the rejections along the way and the close calls, when it finally happens and you're on something, like it's satisfying, but it also sort of feels like okay, that battle's won. Moving on. Like you're ready to move on to you know what I mean? And you're ready to like channel what you've learned along the way to the next thing. And it's sort of like, okay, good, next. And in a way it's, I don't want to say underwhelming, but it's like surreal and sort of like, that sort of tempers the initial perception of what it would feel like. Does that make sense?
A little bit. A little bit.
Okay.
I thought you were gonna say top of the hill, foot of the mountain,
Well, because you hate when I say that.
but
You're
you
just waiting for
didn't.
that phrase. I was
I
saying
just thought
it.
you would say it at some point, but
I was.
that's not what you're saying, really.
It is.
It's a
It is.
different feeling.
Um, it has an element of that to it, also. You know,
Hmm.
because you also like you. What comes with like anything in show business entertainment is like a ton of perception and very little reality for a lot of people. Most people are on the outside looking in and seeing the show. They're not seeing behind the curtain, the production, what's going on, what's being rejected along the way, the
Hmm.
grind, the effort, all the hours and like labor you're putting into something to try to get from A to B and just move the needle a little bit inch by inch, and all the
Hmm.
work that goes into it. When you only see the flashy, cool like headline, it gives you a certain perception of how it's done and what it's like and who's killing it and who's not killing it and all of that. But when you're in the grind of it all and the accomplishments happen along the way, they're kind of indicators to you that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Hmm.
And but I'm not going to say it doesn't feel good. It feels good.
Hmm.
And I'm proud of it. Like I'm proud of
Yeah.
what we were able to do, and I acknowledge that. I'm
Right.
just comparing it to how if I was 18 looking at this, or
Yeah.
21, or just out of Berkeley school, like what am I going to
No.
do in music? If I flash forwarded and just saw this, I know that person would be like over the moon and going crazy because that person would
Right.
lack a lot of perspective and insight as to how it all works
Yeah.
and would only see the highlights.
Yeah. When I got really close to getting into the Sundance program once, and as I submitted all my materials, and then I waited a summer. And when I first submitted all the materials, the the idea that I like, I mean, it sounds cliche, but just like a Jewish kid from New Jersey would like be in a Sundance thing
Hmm.
blew my mind. And it was a real possibility. I was like in like the top 15 or whatever people they were considering. They choose like 10.
And it could be
So
you.
right, and it could be me, and just the idea that it could be me, I just thought about all summer, and sort of like gradually got a grasp on until at the end of the summer, I was like, yeah, it could be me. Why not?
Hmm.
I ultimately didn't get in, but by that point, it almost didn't matter to me because I'd already sort of like absorbed the idea that it could have been me. So like
So you
by
won
the
on the
by
validation.
yeah, by the time it's like by the time you get through the show, you're no longer impressed or struggling with like, oh, I could score a Netflix show because you've done it. Now
Exactly.
when it comes out, you're not excited. It's not like it's not the challenge that it seemed to you so long ago.
I think you honed in on it like that. That impressed with. I'm no longer impressed with it. It's like expected.
You've done
I've
it.
come like that cachet has worn off in a healthy way, and now you're sort of in it. And
Yeah.
I exactly. So that's a big part of it too. And at the end of the day, you are impressed because you're like, that is like that is cool. Like what you're doing. What I know for myself, what's going on internally is it's my old previous self looking at my future. It's my past self and my future self sort of like revisiting each other when moments
Right.
like these. So how does it feel? Like the way you asked me, and I'm like, it's great, but
Yeah.
I'm different now than you are.
Right. Exactly.
And that's the
Yeah.
moment. That's what happens when these sort of perceived big moments, and they are like, proud accomplishments, but when they happen, when we see our song in a big feature film or something like that, it's just like the past self that really wanted this dream and the present self meet. And now they
Yeah.
have to like face each other internally and be like, what's it like?
Right.
Marriage. What's it like? Kids, the first kid. What's it like? Because
Right.
I had this whole idea. And then what happens is there's an element of sadness because the present self sort of has to break the heart or like sort of has to change the past self. The pure, innocent, excited past self. The
Yeah.
present self has to say, I know you're excited and you should be.
Yeah.
I'm experiencing it now for what it really is, and it's not exactly what you expect. It's not necessarily better or worse or whatever. It's just different.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
think that's what I'm identifying in the
Yeah.
feeling. And
And
yeah.
you need a new thing now.
And that was thank you. That was the other thing. The other thing is once you accomplish something that you've been after, it dies. The orientation dies. And I've heard comedians say like, "Your Netflix special's out. How do you feel?" They go, "Oh, kind of shitty." Because like everything I've built up towards is now gone and I have to move on.
Yeah.
So this orientation loss is a feeling.
Will Smith was just on Rick Rubin's podcast. I can't recommend Rick Rubin's podcast enough. It's
Yeah.
called. He is, by the way, a Hasidic Jew, and he doesn't know it. He has payas.
Uh-huh.
He has side locks. It's his podcast is called Tetragrammaton,
Yes.
and he's constantly espousing Hasidic ideas and doesn't know like the phraseology of it, but like he's come to that understanding on his own.
Right. I'm trying to work on an impression, but I can't get it. There's such a range that I just can't capture. It's not
Yeah, it's not
like
it.
there's
It's not
it's
it.
not it. I know it. I know it's not. But it's I mean particularly there's like a particularly I don't think you should even think about what they want because fans don't know what they want. And
It's
you know
less. It's you got to get out of your head a little bit.
it's so resonant though.
Yeah,
His voice is so
yeah,
rich and resonant like being
yeah.
bathed in syrup.
He's floating. He's wearing very flowy clothes. You can just feel it on his. You can
Yes.
feel his body.
So what were you saying?
He,
Sorry.
he interviewed Will Smith, and I was like, I gotta listen to this. First of all, I don't know how you. I mean, having done our podcast, I actually know now how you could go 2 hours talking with someone and not mention the slap. The same way when we talked to Robbie, like we didn't talk to her about her pronouns because like or her top surgery because like you don't do it. You're like a human and it's weird and you don't want to ask him about it. But he was just talking. Will Smith was talking the whole time about how enlightened he is, and you're like how do you square that with having slapped Chris Rock? How do you do it?
It didn't come up?
Didn't come up. Didn't come up.
I'm sure that was by request beforehand.
I'm sure. But Will Smith said something really interesting where he said there's nothing more depressing than getting everything you've ever wanted. So he said there was a summer where he called Quincy Jones, and I think it was like after Independence Day came out, and he's like, I need advice or something. And Quincy Jones is like, I don't know how to help you, dude. You're the only person who's ever dealt with this problem. You're the biggest black movie star that's ever lived. No one knows how to help you. You have to figure it out on your own. You're the only person who's ever had this problem, so no one has the answer for you. But he was saying like, when he had everything he'd ever dreamed of, he had no idea where else to go. And he's become a very strange person. You can kind of tell.
He's
Living
also
this very strange life.
If you watch enough Will Smith, you get a sense that he's trying to fill this void with all this fame and fortune and acclaim over the years from something deep that's missing from him. He wants to be famous, he wants to be this, but he has a lot of insecurity. It's come out in interviews the way he talks about like he's like, acting in and of itself for him isn't enough. It's sort of this other thing that seems to have been missing, and maybe clearly he's damaged.
Yeah,
so.
he made.
I don't know him. I don't want to like psychoanalyze him. I'm just from what I've watched.
He wrote a memoir. Where I think that's good.
And it's like Yeah.
Yeah, and he just keeps talking. Yeah, he was just like talking like a Buddhist monk about. He's like, now when bad things happen, I just laugh. I just find all of existence so funny. It's like you didn't find Chris Rock's joke very funny.
Right.
You don't find everything funny, Will.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying that enlightened state is also like his way of trying to repair.
What do you
persona.
do when you have all the money you'll ever need, all the fame you'll ever need, all the success you'll ever need? You just like, all right, I got to just work on my soul now.
And also, but maybe it tells you what's really important because once you get everything you need materially, like you realize maybe spiritually is where you need actual wealth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like relationships, people who care about you, a loving wife, family, children, like that stuff.
Yeah, and it's
that's
also
that's very in turmoil for him. And like we're talking like we're TMZ here, but let's just take the subject of Will Smith as an example. I don't know if this is really his case, but the idea is like, and this is cheesy, and we've said this, like, what's real happiness for me? This billionaire explains when your kids want to hang out with you when you're older. That's what's happening.
that TikTok.
And I'm like, that's fair. He's like, that's what of all the titles I've had, CEO, CFO, CEO, chairman, executive director, the best label I've ever had is dad. Okay. And I'm like, yeah, that's cheesy and corny and true.
Yeah. Well, it probably also becomes more and more difficult as you become more successful to have real relationships to enrich.
So best to
Because you
make
don't
sure
know who. Yeah.
Yeah, and
you
it's
don't know
best
who really likes you.
Best to make sure the foundation is there because everything built on top of that can help and add to it. But if it's not there, it can just crumble if you lose your orientation.
Yeah. Yeah. And you also get stuck also. I think someone said you stay the same age you became famous at for the rest of your life.
Right. I'm sure it's very hard to make real friends if you're famous.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine. You can only make friends with other famous people. Like, unless, only the people who
Yeah.
precede it.
Yeah, probably.
But I was going to add to the point before about like accomplishing a dream or a goal. The more I've done that consistently, like in the instances that's happened as I've been in the game of the music industry in particular and entertainment industry more broadly, and things have happened, I've become pretty convinced of the idea that at every single level, the top of the hill, foot of the mountain concept is true. Because if, like I said, my 18-year-old or 20-year-old self looked at what I've done now, I'd have a certain reaction to it, that past self. But I'm sure that's the same thing scale-wise as when I look at Bruno Mars and I'm like, dude, what was it like playing the Super Bowl? That's crazy. And he's like, yeah, it was cool. It was definitely incredible, but also I'm sure, there's an element of that same repeating feeling of as you're in it and really doing it. I'm watching the highlights of Bruno Mars, and behind the scenes is a ton of work and grind and effort and stress and concern, like managing a lifestyle that maybe he has to keep up with or whatever it is, whatever it may be. The ratio just kind of moves with you. You know what I mean? So like with each sort of climb up the ladder a little bit of more and more of cooler things happening or accomplishments, it's the same thing. It just follows you in maybe a different scale. There's no question. I wouldn't trade it for anything, and I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying the same mindset I'm sure is true when you're Chris Martin or when you're, just somebody getting started or whatever, and having your first things go. Like major label, you're signed. How does it feel? #1 record. How does it feel? You're playing the Super Bowl. How does it feel?
Yeah.
That it's confronted with that same dynamic, the same dichotomy of the present self and your past perception of it.
Yeah.
I like that. I like this topic. I like that we honed in on that idea. I think that's cool.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, you have to become the person who can accomplish it in order to accomplish it.
Right.
Like
Yes.
I remember when I was going to shoot the short film that I did, and I remember
Yes.
having a moment of awareness before it being I'm doing it over the next 2 weeks. I'll have made a short film whether I want to or not. Like I'm gonna be a different person in 2 weeks. I'll have done this, and that is cool.
Yes. To me, that's the stuff that is the most satisfying, is the doings of it. Remember when Diva was on the podcast and he was like the making of it, the work, the process, that was incredible. That felt like simpatico with how you perceived it to be.
Right.
Like, what does it feel like to
He's
make a record?
Yeah.
Like when you were
yeah.
when you were in Ukraine and you're filming and like you have your dailies, you're like, this is what it is. Like that's almost euphoric. The other stuff afterwards is like, if it got picked for a festival, you'd be like, oh, cool. But
Right.
when you were in it, you were like, look at that. Look what we did today. The process. Like, look what we made today. That to me is the real gratification.
Yeah, David was saying he's like hunting his victims is the joy for him. The actual act of kill. He's like, just like I felt nothing
All right,
when
we'll
it was
leave that one
happening.
What?
When it was happening.
When it was happening. Yeah. But then anyway, it was a fair point. The same thing, like when you were in the grind, there's something that's the fun. And if you don't like that and you're only after like the goal at the end or winning that specific acclaim or something, it's going to suck because it's unpleasant and difficult. There's a lot of work involved.
Yeah. Definitely something I've learned from doing the podcast also, or relearned from doing the podcast. Like I was trying to be more process oriented.
Right. And sometimes you tend to have go ahead.
Yeah. No, Brian Koppelman also said to us about like a good day is when I feel that feeling I like to feel when I write. And I mean, especially, a good day for him could be selling a franchise. Like, he's capable of doing very, very large things every day. And that's how he gets through it. Just focusing on why he's doing it to begin with. Trying to think a lot.
Do you
about
think
that
you've
lately.
held on too much to perception versus the reality, and stay on the perception side versus the reality side?
The perception? What do you mean?
Like perceiving things as like, oh, these big grand things, and actually the reality is when you unpack them behind the scenes, it's more the nitty gritty.
I think you you have a narrative about that that's not quite true about me.
Mm.
Um, um, it's not so much the perception that I'm focused on. I'm I've always been interested in the the difference between making it and not making it, and what that is.
Move a little closer to your mic
Sorry.
on your computer.
Like, I'm sorry. I've always been interested in the difference between making it and not making it. Like, for instance, the guy that just made the bear on FX, he until the bear came out. Let's say the bear came out on a Sunday, and by Monday he was recognized as one of the best showrunners and most creative TV people in the industry. Like the Saturday night before, he didn't change at all. Um, but what changed between Saturday night and Monday? Between on Saturday night, no one cared what he thought about TV, and then on Monday, everyone cared about what he thought about TV. But he hadn't changed at all. I'm very interested in that Sunday, in like the difference between like I I pitched the show and no one bought it, so now I'm not someone who's making a TV show. But like it like what's the difference between someone buying it and not buying it? Is it just timing, luck, like whatever that like precarious little like you either got lucky or you didn't? I've been like very interested in that. And I think what's changed over the course of the podcast is understanding more like what Jeremy Parker was talking about of like the difference isn't really so much luck. It has more to do with hard work than maybe I want to recognize. Um, there's stuff you can do, and the people who do end up making it, it's usually a function not of sort of it either worked out or it didn't work out, but they did something and they worked hard enough for long enough that it ended up breaking their way. I
So
think that
so
that's
what do I
more.
get wrong about my what do you think I'm wrong
I
about
think
in
I think
my
when I
perception?
talk about like the machinations of Hollywood and Washington and stuff, I think I think you think I think it's all sort of rigged and a conspiracy, but
Do you?
no, no,
Less so now though.
no, I never thought it was a conspiracy. I mean maybe there's something right in terms of like
Conspiracy is a loaded word and rigged is a loaded word, and let's leave Washington out of it because I'll let you say whatever you want about that world because it's fun.
yeah,
But those are loaded terms. I don't mean that, but sometimes you speak of it in very binary, like certain people are chosen and
right,
win, and
right,
certain people lose, winners and losers, as
right,
opposed to like it's a series of thousands of binary moments. You are right. There is a difference in that Sunday. But there's a bunch of like little changes along the way. A binary moment could be I didn't write that day, but I wrote this day. I met up with this writer that day, and I worked with him on this
yeah,
thing, and then we pitched this.
right,
So you stack them all together, and you get some
right,
kind of thing that looks like success.
right,
And
and
you've come to understand that a little bit, I think, from what you
yeah,
described.
but then at the end of the day, there's also a system that you have to get chosen by in a sense. But I think where and I think you're right to hone in on how I think about that. I think what I've learned a little is like you can work towards making yourself choosable
Hmm.
in a way that's pretty gross and calculating, but necessary if you want to be a professional.
The reason I asked it to begin with is like
Yeah.
because when you said like Brian Koppelman gets to do like big things, I don't know if he walks around saying I get to do big things. Like you're putting that perception on him that he's kind of a bigger deal now because he's had things under his belt, as opposed to the. I wonder if for him, based on our conversation with him, I love to write what I'm interested in, and now I have an opportunity to do it on a scale that will indulge my
Right.
interests. But he's
So,
still
right.
process oriented. I don't think anything has really changed.
But I think you jump on me for sort of like for sort of like I don't think I don't think he walks around like you said just being like I can do what I want today. I'm Brian Koppelman, and I think he does think of himself in all the ways we're talking about. But I also think you don't have to ignore the fact that he is a powerful producer in Hollywood and has opportunities and access that most people don't have. Like he is a powerful producer who can put together big projects um, at when he wants to. like you don't like you can hold you can hold those two truths together without without saying like, oh well,
But you're not wrong. I just think you might grant a little too much power to that to that status. I've been in rooms with people who are high up,
hmm
and they're just as nervous as the next guy to get the show through because it still has to be it has to go through the same machinations as what you're talking about. Like, oh, I really hope they choose this. I worked so hard on this, and this was like I
true,
was in a room with somebody who was an A-lister, and he was
yeah,
like, and he was just like, oh, so hopefully, fingers crossed, they like
yeah,
what we've done. And in
yeah.
the end, the work is getting judged, not the cachet of the person. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
More
yes,
so,
yeah,
more so.
yes and no. But I mean, part of the reason for the strike now is also like there is an ecosystem where if you get the right names together in a group, I think it's over now, but you could just get a show into a bidding war and greenlit without the work really being done. Like there is that part of the system that
What's over now? The
existed.
strike?
Yeah, the strike, like the writers are striking,
Mm.
because
Well, you said you think it's over now. It did officially end.
no, no, not the strike, just the moment where you could
Oh,
show up to Warner Brothers and say, "Hey, I have Greta Gerwig directing a Noah Baumbach script that Margot Robbie is starring in,
hmm,
and it's about a beloved piece of IP called Barbie." And when you watch it, it seems like they just went, "Go, write it,
yeah.
make it. We don't care. Great." That's called like a package.
Mm.
I don't I think in 2021 or whatever 2019 that's how it works, less so than in 2023, but like there were moments where someone like Brian Koppelman could get a book, get the rights to a book, and get a movie star and say, hey, here's a show I want to make, and it was a lot easier for him to do that than for anyone else.
Of
I'm not saying it's a
uh,
home run, but like that's his life,
yeah,
that's his career.
of course. No, obviously, it's a matter of degree. What I'm just saying is
Hmm
what the emphasis is on. There's no question Martin Scorsese has an easier time getting a bunch of people together to make something, but that's because of it makes sense. It's like it's not like arbitrary power. It's the proof of concept of having made
Yeah.
hit movies, and that
Ah,
allows a lot less resistance for future things. But
yeah.
I think at the end of the day, when the rubber meets the road, you know, if it's a profit-driven market system for entertainment, like the work has to be judged, and if everyone starts not liking something, that can go away very quickly.
Yeah, of
And
course.
also at the end of the day, even those people have to rely on the investment or whatever, or the risk that people are willing to take on something.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that things get shelved all the time. So I'm just saying those things aren't. I think there is. Maybe you're not. Maybe I'm wrong to say that you think this way, but I think there is this perception that like what top of the hill, foot of the mountain. Once you're at the top, it's just you're just cruising. Now you're at this. Now you're. It's binary. Now you crossed over.
Yeah.
You've been approved. You can
Well,
do what you want.
right.
You can get stuff made.
Well,
I can't because I haven't been chosen. It's
well,
just not that squeaky clean.
but there is a threshold that my ambition is to cross where there's less and less friction between doing the thing you want to do and doing it. Like there's just less there's less friction. Like at the very beginning you can't do anything. You need an
Hmm.
agent, a manager to be able to even pitch. You need to do a lot of work. And then there's the point where like you could just pitch whatever you want and maybe it'll get bought, maybe it won't. And then there's the other threshold of like you're not really pitching, you're more like bringing a project to a studio and they either want to partner with you or not. Like I was saying, there are these thresholds where the creative process has less friction. And
Yeah.
I'm that's another thing I'm really, I guess that's sort of what I'm more getting at, where if he wants to do something and it's good, there's a lot less standing in his way than someone else who wants to do something and it's good because of his track record and his career. Yeah,
Sure. I mean, to make Good Will Hunting was a lot harder an effort than any of Matt Damon's current movies. Air,
right,
even
right,
though they're independently funny, whatever it may be. Like
yeah,
to get it all done,
right,
that's tried and true. That's just the
yeah,
principle
yeah,
of with increased
and
success brings increased opportunity, and people
yeah,
want to work with you, and you've made impact and all that stuff. That's all true.
yeah.
But you know what I'm getting at, I think, when I'm saying
I do.
you
Yeah,
know,
I think I do.
um,
I think
and
you
we actually aren't
overstate
disagreeing.
it, but yeah, I think you overstate it, and I guess it is something that I've worked on over the last little while.
I think you have to give yourself permission to put yourself in the club, even if they haven't put you in there yet. I'm actually being
Um,
encouraging, and you want to be properly discouraging, don't you?
Is that my problem? Maybe. I don't know if that's my problem.
I wonder, is it like that you're always like, well, because I'm not the guy who had that Sunday that was chosen for this, like I have to wait to be granted
Right,
access,
yeah,
and as
I've
opposed to saying,
changed.
no, I belong in that crew. It's just they haven't seen my work yet, and they will.
Yeah, I think I'm more there than I was like 10 years ago.
Right.
I think 10 years ago, like I remember this moment where like I was working at a tech startup and my phone rang and it was from LA. And I literally had the thought, I literally had the thought, I was like, maybe this is someone like from LA who wants to like hire me as a writer or something. Like I wasn't right, like there
Yeah.
it was delusional. But I was like, oh, like I know I'm a writer. Maybe someone's like calling me today and being like, hey, you want to come out to LA?
Yeah.
Like and I've connected more to reality than back then, you know. But yeah, there that is part of my brain for sure.
Also, there's a danger in thinking your life is, like you're in the movie of your life and you're the lead, and every single moment. One of the things that's really good about constant rejection and disappointment is you realize that not it makes every single little thing that potentially happens less important. Because, like, if you've had a
Yeah.
series of 10 rejections and then one thing that actually went through, like, all right, so the next 10 won't feel as
Yeah.
bad.
David Bashevkin, maybe I don't know if he coined this, or it might have been David Brooks from the New York Times or something, but he has a rejection resume
Mm-hmm.
where he wants to see all the things that didn't work out
Mm.
for you. And I remember seeing that, and I started making a list, and it just becomes then a game of like, let me take as many swings as I can, and the more swings I take, the
Buckle
closer.
up, podcast. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and also, and I'm just saying, when, especially in the social media thing that you're saying, like when I was talking about before, is like when a specific cool glamorous moment happens and it kind of lets you down of what it can do. It makes everything less like that could have been it, because in your mind we were raised with this romantic notion that Quincy Jones walked into
Yeah.
the room and saw him playing the guitar
Yeah.
and then signed him and he became a superstar.
And by that notion, just taking the swing, just pitching to Netflix
Right.
made me someone who could have a Netflix show.
Right.
It didn't work out for me, but now I'm someone who could in my own psyche. So like
Correct.
now why not? Why not me? Yeah, let's
Yeah.
like keep going with
So
that.
the
So
benefits of that, when you have, obviously you need something to work out eventually, right? We
yeah.
do. You need success. It's a part of the game and it's essential to it to sustain you, but it's also like you realize that every little that phone call that you missed was likely nothing, right? And it was. But if you had the same belief that that could have been the call that signed me to the show, and if you thought that
Yeah.
that's really how it worked, then every time you were let down, it would be so gutting.
Yeah. I
'Cause-
also find that the more I'm thinking about that, it's more of a symptom of not actually writing stuff that I think is great. Because as long as I'm making stuff that I think is awesome,
Mhm.
then it just sort of becomes like a waiting game and a trying game of like, let me, how can I get this in front of the right person?
Right.
When I'm thinking so much about like the luck of it, it's more
Right.
because like I know what I have isn't like really that mind blowing. It's
Oh,
like
so
you have to get lucky because it's not that profound.
right.
You
It
know,
makes you a
like
healthier creative when you're just like, listen, all that stuff happens, comes and goes, everything almost
yeah.
happens, some things do happen, but I'm showing up every day doing what I have to do. I take the same approach.
And then
Where
do
it's
what I
like,
like to do,
yeah, yeah,
trying to chase that thing that you like to do. Yeah.
right,
Yeah, so it's been, yeah, I think I'm like coming a little bit out of a long transition, probably over the last like year and a half or
mm,
so, like coming out of COVID
right,
and being like my new ambition again now is to really just start writing stuff that I can shoot and raise money for, and like publish on my own.
yeah,
And very much less so, and also accepting with that it might not lead to a lucrative career,
mm,
but being like more okay with that. Like if it's good, the right people will find it, and if it's not, I just have to keep getting better. But that's a
right,
much healthier place to be, I think, than
for
I have to
sure.
write this and so my manager likes it. Or it's like just
Especially
makes me
when what we
crazy.
said before is that the real fun stuff is the makings of it. So might as well make it and get
Right.
it made. And on
Yeah.
that same note, our transitions this episode are just flawless. I don't know how we keep doing this, but on J Sketch, which we wanted to discuss, speaking of making things just for like the passion and the fun of it, I've
Yeah.
had
So
this.
what's J Sketch in case someone doesn't know?
So I've recently partnered up with two buddies of mine in the comedy space, fellow Orthodox Jewish comedians. A guy named Mikey Greenblatt goes by Jewish Vibes on Instagram, and Ellie Leibovitz, another comedian who we've had on the show. And we kind of just started for fun, putting together sketches that are like the Key and Peele of Orthodox Jewish comedy, sort of what Key and Peele did in a lot of ways for black culture and the black community, like things that a lot of the world didn't know about. We're trying to, not just for the outside world, but just for our world in and of itself, even our just small little pocket, make comedy for this world, of rich world that we come from. And it's
Can I
been a lot of
interrupt you
fun.
for 1 second just to jump on that? Key and Peele have said they weren't really making comedy for the black world. They're making it for mixed race people because they
Right.
grew up kind of wealthy with like mixed race with like a white parent and a black parent,
Right.
and they're like, who's making comedy for us? We want to make for people who exist in both.
Right.
So,
I
and so
miss.
you guys are being very specific also of like
Correct. I actually, I don't know if what they were doing is like is showing what the black community is like in particular, but their experience. You know,
right, their experience.
they're showing their experience, and I'm seeing things that I find funny. I don't know how like the non-Orthodox, non-Jewish world reacts to our sketches, but for us, like I want to give it that level of elevated comedy to stuff that's in our world because it doesn't get touched or tapped onto. Sort of the way there's like Jewish music, there's only like certain. There's a lot of like Jewish music out there, but only certain ones that really do it for me. And I'm trying to give a certain sense of quality sketch comedy to our world, which is so rich with stuff and content.
Yeah.
You know, so we're
Yeah.
doing it and we're having a lot of fun with it. And what's been cool is to have to do something that's so niche that like I know when I put it out there, when we release these things, these little like sketches, they hit a very specific audience and they hit the target. And like things are getting shared on Twitter. Couple 50,000 views on our last video here.
They're
70 to
getting
80,000, and then WhatsApp threads, which where a lot of religious Jews hang out, are passing these videos around like wildfire.
Yeah, so someone said they got a downloaded version of it forwarded
Right.
throughout WhatsApp, which
That's-
is really cool. And they're also they're funny. They're
Yeah.
like they're very funny.
Thank you. Someone was like, "Dude, you're in all the Hatzalah threads, very high end." But it's fun. I feel like I'm like doing stuff for the people, by the people. It feels
Yeah.
very like communal and nice.
And you're going for it too.
In what sense? Like in the sketches.
Like Ellie's taking his shirt off and jumping in a pool. You're not being shy about it. You're
We're
like
not-
really putting it all out there, which
I wouldn't
is
call
fun.
them dirty or even they're not even edgy
No.
per se, but like we maximize the funny we can out of these things because I
Yeah.
think it's healthy, especially for a community to laugh at itself at this stuff that we all know is funny, but who talks about it? There's very few people who can joke about this stuff. So
Yes.
so
Yes.
that's fun. And
Yeah.
like you said, like doing it and putting it out is to the extent that we're able to and fit it into schedules and get it done, it's
Yeah.
been refreshing.
It's cool to see from my perspective too, because it's very much not my thing, and it's not really what I'm interested in. But I love seeing people wearing their. I'm a little embarrassed to do it. Like I wouldn't. I don't like I would like to like work on something with you guys, but like it's really not my thing to like be involved so much.
You're not performer oriented.
I'm not a performer, but I'm also a little like shy and like embarrassed about the whole like the thing. I can't like wear my like orthodoxy on my sleeve like that, but I
Have
like
you seen your
seeing...
face, Michael?
But I like seeing because the truth I feel like a little bit of an outsider. That's like a longer conversation.
Yeah.
But I like seeing you guys just unabashedly and unashamedly being like, this is who we are, and we don't care if 20 people watch this. We're just gonna do it, and finding it that there's actually an audience for it bigger than you thought is like so. I love that thing. That's like my favorite thing.
Right.
Yeah.
You mean as just a from an audience to performer like relationship?
No, I think when people unashamedly and unabashedly are themselves, they find the truth and they find an audience, and the truth always finds an audience.
Right.
So it's nice that you guys. I love that you did it because you totally could have been like, listen, I'm going for like big crowds, big market, secular stuff. Like I don't need people to know I'm modern Orthodox and all that. Like
Right.
I have my lane and I'm going for big. But you weren't. You're like, I don't. This is who I am, and if it's small, it's small. I don't care. And
So
that's
why
cool.
why are you embarrassed to be a Yid, Michael? Is the worst place on earth
No,
for
I'm
you
not embarrassed.
davening?
I'm not embarrassed to be. Yeah.
Davening in public in a parking lot at an amusement park and people walking by. Is that the worst place you could be?
That is a beautiful
That's a great
illustration
J
of it.
sketch. Ugh. Like
You're looking at your phone. You're like
we have an
at your
ideas
phone.
list. One of them is getting marived. Like when you get marived, so it's like marived. This is all that
Right,
great
like
stuff.
don't make eye contact.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so much of that. But
Oh
yeah,
no, that's exactly it. I hate that. I'm very uncomfortable with it. I've been working on it for a long time, but I also don't feel like I didn't grow up in a modern Orthodox family, so I also
Mm.
feel I don't feel quite like culturally the same way you guys do about it as much. Like,
But you grew up in a non-Orthodox community, but your
yeah,
family
no,
was on the outside of it.
I'm just saying internally, yeah, I feel like I'm on the outside of a little bit of it. Like what's Michael Weber doing in those J sketch things?
So
That's in my head. That's the
yeah,
voice in
at
my
your
head.
core, you are in conflict a little bit.
It's not so much a conflict. Is it a conflict?
Your identity is kind of like it's sort of like this.
People look at me like I'm like the frisch yeshiva monorthodox like poster boy sometimes, but
Mm.
that's not how I look at myself or feel on the inside or really am. So I don't really think it's a conflict. It would be a conflict if I was in the video, but I'm not. I don't like engage with it.
No, but the
You
reason
know?
you wouldn't want to be per se is because there's a part of you that is I don't know, you're like not don't want to take ownership of that. Not because it's like inauthentic. It's
Hmm.
authentically not fully you in a way.
Yeah, yeah. I don't want to like almost pretend like I am that thing.
Correct.
Um, like like the Seum thing. Like I don't know from like even now. Like if I had to jump in a pool, I would kind of jump in a pool without too much guilt about it. Like it's not like because that's not something my family like did growing up. Like it was never like it was my thing. I took that on myself, but like I was never told you can't go in a pool, you can't eat meat if you don't have CM like that. That's not my joke as much.
That's not my experience either. But you get it. What the sketch pointed to was everybody
Oh
being
no, I
you get
completely get it and I
yeah.
laugh and it's funny and it's funny. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But no, there's something else of why you wouldn't want to. To me, there is this notion of we all grow up with this the same way. I feel like anybody who's in a culture thinks that culture is not cool by
Hmm.
comparison to the main culture. I know that you talk to an Indian American who's like, "Yeah, I don't want to eat my food when I went to this public school with all these other kids. I didn't want them to see what my mom made me. I was embarrassed
Yeah,
by it." There's something about wanting to be in the mainstream.
yeah,
But then if you push past that, it's like, you know what's cool? Being really
yeah.
comfortable with your culture and people
Well,
like that.
that's what I think is cool about the woke thing. I mean, obviously woke is a political term now and maybe it's gone too far, but the idea that anyone can be exactly who they are and celebrated for it, I think is awesome. You know, if like you're gay, be gay. If you're a Chinese first generation immigrant who eats smelly food at lunch, like embrace that and celebrate that. And I think that's like
That's
an
not what woke
awesome.
means now. No one's rejecting to that.
No, I mean not specifically, but like but
That
the
idea is
yeah,
embraced by is a liberal idea. Be who you want to be and be free to be
right,
who
the
you want to be.
liberal idea
The
of it.
woke
Yeah.
idea
Fair
is
enough. Yeah,
very
maybe that
different.
was the
It
wrong
carries
term
so much
for it.
more ugliness and darkness to it. To me, like we've talked about it. We don't
Yeah.
have to have a segment of the podcast that goes
Yeah.
there. We could, but to me it's much more divisive and about like certain groups having preferential
Right, right. True, true.
acknowledgement
Right, right.
and everything
Well,
being
right. Well,
viewed
it's
through.
like it was my identity is more important
Yeah,
than
more
yours,
important. And
or more
if you're a
specific than
cis
yours.
white male, that
Yeah.
experience is not valid, and you
Right.
don't have a say.
Right.
But if you're this and this, it's very hierarchical and
Yeah.
selective, and not about people just being who they are.
I think
And
what
it's
you
also about the
guys,
man-woman thing, being who you are,
yeah.
and like being forced to acknowledge something that isn't whatever. So it's like, there's all that whole issue.
I think what you guys might have honed in on also is like I've read scripts from people trying to do like the black experience, the Asian American experience thing with mono-Orthodox. Like I grew
Hmm.
up in this very specific way, and it's very weird and exotic, and like
Hmm.
and they never really do because I think mono-Orthodoxy is like very sort of thin and like shallow in a lot of ways, like
Hmm.
the experience. I think what you guys make fun of is the shallowness of it instead of
Hmm.
trying to elevate it, which is funny because there's truth to it.
Right at its
You know,
core,
the whole
it's the
scene thing is
compromise.
it's absurd.
Hmm.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and therefore the fun. And also the problem with any show that tries to tackle a culture is they try to water it down so that the masses can understand it. And that is the worst thing you can do, because what makes something compelling is its authenticity. And the second you water it down, like these shows we talk about how Jews are portrayed in media, it isn't real anymore.
Yeah.
You know, even a show like Game of Thrones, which is fake culture, they made it up. They didn't give you they didn't water anything down. You had to get in there and figure out who's this house, who belongs to what. There's a whole lore and history here. You have to get into it.
Yeah.
They don't tell you, they show you. So that's what we're doing in our sketches. Lavdil. We're showing you a scene. We're not like we're not calling the Siem something else.
Right.
You have to know what that is, and if you don't know, and then you'll
culmination.
Find out. That would be horrible. That would be just horrible.
Yeah,
and I would be so against any form of watering down.
Yeah.
We have another one coming out, and maybe this podcast will come out afterwards. It's the people of Tisha B'Av, the people you meet on Tisha B'Av. I'll show it to you, the rough sketch. You know, like all the different things you.
The chair, the guy with the amazing
guy who brings a
small
bed
chair.
To we exaggerate it. He brings we have pillows, the bad faster, like the movie buff,
faster.
The movie buff.
Right.
It's like, and it's just like you'll see. It's cute. It's more of a cuter one, but it's like the guy who makes a big deal out of not saying hello. Like all those folks. Yeah. And it's very niche, and it's very nice to know that. Like, it also creates a massive private joke amongst all of us on the interwebs.
Yes.
Like, if you know, you know, and that's very satisfying for people because it gives people a sense of community.
Yeah.
And all the content, like, advice people are like, creating community is so important, but doing it inadvertently is my preference, where it's just like this is automatic. Anyway, that's Jay Sketch.
That's Jay Sketch. I think that might be episode 68.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Michael, we got deep.
Yeah, this was good. This was fun. This felt like first 20. I think our first 20 episodes were pretty great.
That's a long time ago, Michael.
I know they were a long time ago, but I think they were great when we got into like Scott Adams and Jordan Peterson and all that. And
yeah, we can
some
still
of this
do
stuff
that.
too. Yeah.
Don't forget, they probably were like that the next 20. We just got used to it. But maybe they also got a little bit like, what are we doing? It's fine. We do too much talking about the podcast instead of podcasting. I've never seen a podcast that talks about itself so much.
Well, you don't ever watch podcasts, so.
True. Clips. I've never seen a clip that does it.
They don't put those clips out.
Correct.
Yeah. Podcasts talk about podcasts. They all do.
Yeah.
It's not good when they do it either.
Right.
But they all do it.
Well, then that's a relief.
Yeah.
That is a relief.
Yeah, speaking of relief, I got to turn this AC on and end this episode.
I admire your going through the trenches here.
I'm a hero.
Wish me luck in the Catskills where it all started. I'll be performing with Chosen Comedy Festival Saturday night. Great list of comics coming up. I'm pretty excited about it.
This Saturday night?
Mm-hmm.
On the 20, what is it? What's the date?
This Saturday night will be the 29th.
29th. All right. So if you're in the Catskills on the 29th, where are you performing?
At the Cartwright Hotel.
The Cartwright Hotel. Cool.
Are you going to be there upstate?
No, I actually have a bachelor party this weekend.
Nice. All right, cool.
Yeah, the rare bachelor party.
That's
exciting.
Crazy. Tell me later
right?
who it is. We don't have to bring it up. But
it's a secret. He doesn't want anyone knowing that he's getting married.
Very good. Enjoy that.
Thank you.
And we'll talk later. All right, that's Buckle Up episode 68. Out.